Good morning. Hi, everybody. You might have heard in my video last night, I interviewed with Noreen Savage. She has a YouTube channel where she interviews people doing bright line eating. And I love the work she's doing. And it's work, I can tell. When she interviewed me, she strung together a slideshow of things that are so personal to me. And I just loved it. It was so delightful to look and see. If you know me well at all, or if you've listened to many of my videos, if you see her slideshow, you will see she just nailed it. Finish strong with a question mark. No, we don't want to finish strong. We want to finish surrendered. She has a slide on there about water, about white knuckles, not white flags, about junk food and a couple scriptures. Anyways, it's work. It's work, and it's worth it work. Noreen, keep up the good work. So, to prepare for that, Noreen and I wanted the conversation to flow, right? We just wanted to have a conversation, and we were sure that we'd have plenty to talk about. But to prepare for it, I did write down some notes, and that's what this video is going to be right now. If you listened to that video last night, you'll know that interview is going to be out soon. If you listen to tonight's video, you will know that my oldest son is homesick, which means he can babysit two of my other kids there for a few minutes until I get back, because they're still quarantined until next week. Which gives me this opportunity to pull over on the side of the road. No, I'm at a dead end down the end of my street here, and record this. And I want to show you. So this is basically what Western Kentucky looks like, at least where I am. Look at this. Somebody has been drinking beers and then littering. I just thought that was kind of funny and odd. Thought I'd show you. Okay, so I'm going to back up here and get right into this. And hopefully make it kind of quick, because I want to get home and get lots and lots and lots of stuff done around the house today. That's the plan. It builds up, doesn't it? In a nutshell, here I go. I'm happy to share these notes with you all. I'm basically just going to read them. But this is what I thought, okay, if I have 1 hour to talk to people on this interview, that's about what the interview is. I think it's an hour, maybe 45 minutes. I don't know by the time she edits it down. I was just kind of thinking, what would I share? And I thought, wow, 2 years of bright line eating, to have it on a few little pieces of paper, I thought that's worth making a video about, because I would say this is somewhat of a nutshell. We did cover quite a bit of this on the interview, but all right, so here goes. Space and grace. On this journey, give yourself space and grace. Give yourself room to grow, just like you do with your kids, or good teachers do with their students. Space to grow, room to grow, acknowledging that there's room for improvement, and grace when we trip and fall, because that's going to happen, and it's part of this journey. Staying science-minded. I have a video about staying science-minded. It's all data. Good days and data days, not good days and bad days. I go into more about this on my video called Staying Science-Minded. We know this journey is not going to be perfect, so let's don't act shocked when it's not. We know it's not going to be. So when it's not, we don't need to let that derail us mentally. We can see it coming, and when it gets here, we can make our way through it. So just like when we hike, we're not shocked when we trip over the tree roots and rocks. In fact, that's part of it. That's kind of part of the fun of hiking, knowing you're gonna get into some rough terrain. And it doesn't cross our minds to stop hiking or turn around and go back. Ever. When you're hiking and you trip and fall, you don't think, I just tripped. I'm going back. Literally, that's not what people think. They're up for it. They're ready for it. It's why they have their boots on. We're up for it. We're ready for it. It's why we have each other. So a mental hurdle, be willing to move forward knowing it's not going to be perfectly smooth. For so many of us, and I would say this really applies to women, moms, wives, so much of our life is serving others, and because others are involved, we think, we have this misconception that we've got to go about it perfectly. We don't need to get good at being perfect. We need to get good at apologizing, get good at modeling what it looks like to be human. So I've noticed over the years that part of the struggle, as I've led hundreds of people now in behavioral programs, part of the struggle for people to even take that step forward is getting over the inertia of fearing that they're going to mess up. Let's don't be afraid of that. Let's embrace that. Let's move forward knowing there's only one way we're going to do it, and that's imperfectly. There's many ways we're going to do it. Imperfectly and together. There's a couple. I have noticed that over the years, though, and I think that's a very interesting, it's just very interesting to me to see how the pursuit of perfection can be very paralyzing, where we say, it's not going to be perfect, so I'm not even going to try. Move forward knowing we're hiking. We're going to trip and fall. So let's have support and strategies in place. Seasons. We have seasons of much motivation. We have seasons where we get rolling, right? Rolling. And then we have seasons of internal growth. It's all progress. Seasons of momentum and seasons of internal growth. So you're either rolling and you're just full steam ahead, or you're making pit stops because your vehicle needs some attention. And during those pit stops, you're not gaining time, you're not gaining momentum, but you're gaining much needed tools and adjustments. So it's all good. Whether you're just rolling and you've got bright day after bright day after bright day, or you find yourself in the midst of a relapse like I did May, June, and July, or another unexpected issue in August when I got really sick, those are not setbacks. I love hearing preachers say, those are not setbacks, those are set-ups. We want to just roll, right? We want everything done yesterday. We want to be done with the work. But just like I said at a recent funeral that I spoke at, the work is a blessing. The work gives us something to focus on. When our work is done and there's no more pain, we're done here on earth. As long as we're here on earth, we can count on work and pain, and we can be grateful for both of those. I talk about pain quite a bit. Pain has a purpose, Isaiah 66:9. Pain's a red light indicator that something in our life needs attention. And when we're numbing ourselves with the things we're addicted to, we are not taking care of things that need some attention. So we want momentum, we want to be rolling, but there are just times, there are seasons where these vehicles we're in, others around us, there are times where the progress we want to be making, which is just like easy weight loss, we've got these, like, if we're honest, somewhat superficial goals at times. When God says, hold on, time out, let's work on something deep for a few weeks. Let's work on something hard for a few months. You'll be glad we did, because you're going to get back out on the road and you'll be heading forward with momentum, and you'll be in better shape than you were. You don't even realize that your vehicle needs some attention at times. So these aren't setbacks, these are set-ups, and it's disrupting our timeline, But we don't need to be worried about operating on our timeline. I say in one of my BLEVERS, believers videos, that it's his timing. And had I gotten to my goal weight when I wanted to, which was like 20 years ago, I wouldn't be with you here making this video now. I was 11 pounds from goal weight. I was 6 pounds from goal weight at one point. Then during the relapse, I was, I don't know, 20 pounds and back down to 11. I mean, my graph, capital W, you hear me talk about it. Up, down, up, down. As of last week, I was up 4.4 pounds. Now I'm 16 pounds from goal weight. Guys, we're hiking together. If all of a sudden I could click my fingers and get to where I think I want to be, then I'd miss out on the immeasurable, indescribable gifts that God has me, that God has for me between point A and point B, including this time with you guys, traveling together, making lasting friendships, fellowship, connecting with my sisters and brothers in Christ. If we got where we think we want to go, when we think we want to get there, we don't even know what all we'd be missing out. So I will patiently stay the course, and I know I'll get to my goal weight. There's scripture where God tells us, I will complete this work I'm doing in you. I'll look it up and add it below this video. He's at work in us, and he promises us he will complete the work. I trust I'll get to my goal weight. I trust I'll get where God wants me to go. I also trust I'll get there in his timing, not mine. We cannot rush him, nor would we want to. So be patient with yourself. We're navigating our way out of the wilderness. It's easy to get lost. It's easy to run into the wilderness. I see wilderness around here. It'd be a whole lot easier for me to run into it than find my way out of it. To get out of the wilderness is tedious and treacherous. It's easy to get lost. It's tedious and treacherous to get unlost. It requires staying focused and concentrating on our steps. We have to be awake and aware. Imagine a bunch of necklaces in a big ball. It's easy to get them tangled. It's painstaking. It's a painstaking process to get them untangled. And that's what we're doing. We are untangling behaviors and modes of operation that have solidified over decades. We are reversing momentum. That takes a conscious effort. It takes focus. It takes strategy. We are building automaticity when there's already been automaticity built by our default human nature. It's a lot to overcome, but we're doing it together. So we want to be patient with ourselves and be patient with the process. Keep going, no matter the pace. In one of my, like I said, in my Believers video, I talked about, this cheek is really red and hot. This one, not this one. In one of my Believers videos, I talk about this face washer, this little Mia 2 thing that I have that I wash my face with in the shower. I noticed a while back that when it goes for 60 seconds period, I push a button and it goes for 60 seconds. When I'm in a hurry, I scrub my face so fast and so hard as if I'm going to make those 60 seconds end quicker. God's timing is going to take however long he wants it to take. When we get impatient and we try to rush the process, all we're doing is wearing ourselves out. We're just exhausting ourselves. I just noticed that when I'm in a big hurry, I move that face toothbrush faster because I want it, as if I'm going to make it go faster. I'm not. Those 60 seconds are going to last 60 seconds every time. Whether I'm calm and relaxed and confident and surrendered and at peace and grateful, or if I'm irritated and frustrated and disheartened and discouraged. It's God's vision. I like to say, He provides everything. It's His provision. It can be His vision. And He knows better than we do. So let's be patient with the process. This is a battle, both spiritual and physical. Our spirit is battling the flesh. Our human nature is going to be to default into momentary pleasure. And I've recently been listening to this. Thank you, Talita, for sending that video. The process of following the flesh is an initial lust for something, which is, lust is a perverted desire. Lust, then deceit. Deceit that this thing is going to give us what we really want or need when it's not. Lust, then deceit, then sin, then death. And again, I'll link this scripture below also. That is scripture. That is the order of operations. Lust gives birth to deceit, which gives birth to sin, which leads to death. And it doesn't have to be, and it certainly could be, but it doesn't have to be literal physical death, but just death of the life that we could be living otherwise. How did I get myself in this pickle? I used sugar and flour as an upper, which is so ironic because I would use it to force myself to keep going all day long and use it to knock myself out at night. Now, isn't that interesting? The same substance I would use to make me go. And then if I ate enough of it at night, I could use it to help me pass out. So I was using sugar and flour and binges to bookend my day and to force me to keep going all day long. The path of addiction keeps getting narrower and narrower as we resensitize. Our tolerance goes down. So like cleaning out our vehicles, this is a process of healing and decluttering. And I've said this in my videos before. It's like when the process of recovery and becoming sober, the path out of addiction. The path, I don't know what I just now said, but the path out of addiction. I might have said the path of addiction. The path out of addiction keeps getting narrower and narrower because, like when you clean out your vehicle, first you get the giant things that are real obvious. Get them out. Well, by the time you get them out, then you start to notice other things. And then more, and then other things, and then smaller things. And to be honest, it's those smaller things that are deep within us. Search me, O Lord, and know my anxious ways. Search me, O Lord. There's scripture there. I'll link that below. True transformation occurs when we start to deal with these underlying issues. And what happens is we start to get sober. And then if we want to stay on that path, there are things we have to do actively. We have to let go of certain people, places, and things, certain nouns, if you will, that would have a pull on us back into our old default ways, because this is absolutely swimming upstream. This takes a conscious effort. If we relax, I used to tell the kids in my youth group, as long as you're human, your wheels are going to need to be realigned. As long as you're addicted, which I am, and a lot of us are, our brains will always have a default off the path we want to be on. Like your vehicle, if your wheels need to be realigned, you better keep your hand on the wheel, because the minute you let go, it's going to naturally veer off. That's what us as human beings will do this entire time we're human, because our human nature is going to be to default, and especially when it comes to addiction. So when we're getting out of addiction, we start to release some big things, some great big holds, some just great big chains and snares and things that we were clearly trapped by. But once we deal with those, we start to notice some smaller things and some nuances and some more subtle things. And those are really important to notice and worthwhile to address, because I have a video called Gateway Behaviors. It's those little bitty things, like pulling a string and finally unraveling the sweater. It's those little bitty things that if we want to minimize and not pay attention to, could be the very thing that leads us right back into our old default ways. So here's a couple realizations. Sugar and flour cause depression and anxiety because they cause inflammation, including in our brains. I have a video called Connecting the Dots where this finally started to really make sense to me. I had binged for the first time in 56 days. I had 56 actual bright days, all 4 bright lines, 56 days in a row. I stayed up till 3 a.m. getting ready for us to take a trip to go get the poodles last December 12th, actually. And when I loaded up the car with the kids, 3 little kids, everything loaded, I was ready to sleep in the front seat, and my husband said, I need you to drive. He needed me to drive. I did not see that coming. And in order to drive after not sleeping, I chose to start ingesting the very drug that I'm addicted to. And like I say, I will not deny or minimize, because I think we'd be being naive or somewhat irresponsible not to acknowledge that there are pros. It tasted good. It was a whole lot of fun. This was a Friday. In my Connecting the Dots video, you'll hear me say Friday was fun, Saturday was fine. By Sunday, I had a migraine that was so bad that I thought I might need to go to the emergency room. And by Monday, I was having suicidal thoughts. I was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for my kids, crying. They were at the island. I was making sandwiches, crying. I was having a very hard time functioning while my body processed that poison through my system and out of my system. The only day I binged was Friday. By day 4 of withdrawal, the depression was so bad, I was having what I call passive suicidal thoughts. Not thoughts of actually ending my life actively, but thoughts of, I don't know that I can keep going. I don't know that. And guys, that's not external. That's not how bad my life was. My life was fine. I had things in place. Things were great. It's not external. It's internal. There was nothing going on the outside of me that would merit those thoughts. That is what sugar and flour did to me by day 4, especially after having not ingested it for 56 days. I had no tolerance. These are drugs we're dealing with. So I used them as far back, and I like the word used, because that's what I do. I give my kids sugar and flour, but I tell them don't use it like I did. Enjoy it, but don't use it to cope with life, to connect, or to force yourself to keep going. So I used sugar and flour as far back as elementary school. When I switched schools in 3rd grade, I was very sensitive and emotional. And I say, by the way, I guarantee you a lot of us on this journey are really sweet, sensitive people, because we have a lot of emotions, and we have been using substances to help us navigate those emotions, which we don't want to do. As far back as elementary, I can see where I used food to feel better. In high school, I can see where I was probably starting to deal with some depression and would use sugar as an upper to flood my brain with chemicals that would just be an upper for me to be funny and fun, and I could go out and go for several more hours. You know, if I was exhausted after high school and we were all going out, I would binge. I didn't really understand why I was doing it, but I see now. I talk about this in my What Bright Line Eating Is and What It Is Not video. But I can see now that I was using sugar and flour to change the chemistry in my brain. I was not using it as fuel. I was not using it as energy. Calories are energy, period. That's what they are. They are energy. I wasn't consuming food. I wasn't chewing and swallowing because I needed energy. I was using it to change the chemistry in my brain, to get dopamine, to get adrenaline, to change my chemistry so that I would feel different. I wasn't consuming it to fuel. I was consuming it to feel differently. And to force myself to keep going for several more hours and have a whole lot of fun with my friends. I'm sure consuming lots more sugar and flour. So like I say in the video with Noreen, this has been the easiest way to lose weight, but the most excruciating journey at times, learning to walk again, to function without using. That's why crying is step 7 of my emergency action plan. I have a video called My Emergency Action Plan, and crying is on there. It's tension release, teaching special education. Every year I do CPI training, crisis prevention, CPI training, crisis prevention, intervention. I can't think of it. We learned to restrain kids. I taught kids middle and high school that had severe behavior disorders. Everyone in my class had been kicked out of the middle school or high school for one reason or another. We got kids from all over. We got kids that had committed crimes. We got, you name it. It was wild, and I loved those kids. Crying is tension release. When a child is very frustrated and they're not rational, and they're going to hurt themselves or others, we learned how to restrain them safely. Of course, this was a last resort. We never wanted to have to do that. But ultimately, when they would finally cry and they would apologize to us, or at least have lucid thoughts again, that's the tension release. When we're dealing with stuff and we're so angry and we're so upset and we're so frustrated, when we finally cry at times is when the tension's finally released. So that's part of this. Feel free to cry, like I talk about in my interview with Noreen. We're dealing with a lot of emotions. We don't have the crutch that we used to, and just taking away the crutch causes emotions, because we have a whole lot of emotions tied in with different sugar and flour, different restaurants, different recipes, different memories, different smells, different tastes. It's got to be worth it to you to be sober. And when I am, there's one word that comes to mind, and I've got this written in my original Bright Line Eating Journey. To disconnect myself from sugar and flour. Available. It makes me available. I all of a sudden have an availability to serve and love those around me, including myself, take better care of myself than ever. When I'm in the throes of my addiction, it's all consuming. I have no choice but to be self-centered. I become available to those around me. My 20-day detox video, I talk about automaticity creates capacity. When my food is automated and I'm no longer trying to figure out what's going to scratch the itch or hit the spot, I become available to those around me. A pivotal moment. Here's 2 pivotal moments. The moment I realized I'm not a victim of the gifts that God has given me. This is at the tail end of my Endure, Enjoy video. Endure and Enjoy. Where I realized this. You're going to see me, if you watch that video, it's 2 hours long. You'll see me realize this in real time. Oh my goodness. This is not a curse. This is a blessing. This is a gift. And I'm not a victim of it. Medicine is a gift. This has been prescribed to me, and other people don't have to take my medicine, not my friends, not my family, not even my spouse. I used to think I needed Greg to do this with me for moral support. That's not only not true, but it's a relief to realize. When he has a migraine, it would do him no good for me to take Excedrin to support him. In fact, it would be destructive for him and I both. Other people don't have to take my medicine. Freeing myself. It's freeing. It's freeing. It's so freeing to not look at other people and feel envy or resent. To not look at them and what they're doing and think, why can't I? Why can't I eat that or do that? You guys, I could if I wanted to. I could choose to not take my medicine. So it's freeing to find peace and be grateful regardless of what others around me are eating. And I'm in situations like that all the time. And I watch them consuming what they're consuming, and I hear them complain about how bad they feel afterwards. Or I watch them eat what they eat and struggle with their weight. And you can just clearly see that many of us cannot have both. We cannot eat whatever we want and be in the body that we want to be in. I have experienced eating whatever I want. I'd like to experience being in the body I want to be in. It is a trade-off. And the clock is ticking. There's one opportunity to be in the body you want to be in here on earth. I've talked about it in my testimonies. I've experienced sugar and flour in every imaginable form, which, by the way, it's all the same thing. It's different colors, it's different forms, it's different textures. It's all the same thing. It's sugar and flour. I've experienced it. I have not experienced getting into the jeans that are in my cedar chest right now. My final pair, my final size. I've not experienced my mid-40s fit and healthy and free. There's so much I haven't experienced. I have been there and done that with sugar and flour. So regardless of what others are eating around me, I feel loved and special and cared for. And like I said on Noreen's video, I am loved and special and cared for, and so are you. So are you. People say you're worth it, you deserve it. I never say those things. I never tell people we deserve it. Dave Ramsey says, how are you? He says, better than I deserve. We don't deserve what Jesus has done for us. Deserve implies that we earned it. We didn't earn it. Salvation is a gift that we can choose to freely accept. This is a gift that we can choose to freely accept or not. So there's no such thing as square one, and there's no such thing as gaining our weight back. That's another thing I'd like to put out here in my In a Nutshell video. People say I gained all my weight back. No, you didn't. You gained brand new weight because of brand new life experiences, and good thing you lost it the first time, or you might have gained 100 and 100 more. If you gain 100 and lost it, well, you're still kind of at a net. It's a net, I don't want to say win or loss, but just kind of back to that same exact weight range. We don't gain our weight back. We have new life experiences. We gain new weight. There's no such thing as being back at square one, because even if you tried something, you're not back at square one, because now you know you can narrow all those things out. You have more information, more life experience. You're further along on your journey. A friend of mine recently said, oh, I've gained some weight, and I'm embarrassed to be around people. Be around them boldly. Show them that you're not ashamed of the disease that you're dealing with. Be bold and be willing to show people that it's a real struggle, but you're struggling your way right on through, and we want to keep struggling. Struggling is good. It's why people go to the gym, to purposely struggle so that they leave there stronger. So I consider weight to be tuition in the school of life. It's debt that we can get out of. And it's not to be taken for granted that we can get out of it. There are a lot of afflictions. Here's my son wanting me to come back home, I'm sure. There's a lot of afflictions that are not temporary in the way weight gain is. So let's don't take for granted that this is something that we can do something about. There are many things people are dealing with right now that just making the decision and finding the motivation and, rallying, recruiting the support and moving forward with some strategies. None of that is an option. Let's don't take for granted that it's even an option, that changing the situation we're in and the shape our bodies are in is absolutely an option. You probably hear me talk a lot about eating from exhaustion. I conditioned my brain to binge when I was exhausted. And I'm relearning and reconditioning to give my body rest when it needs rest and calories when it needs calories. And a final pivotal moment here, these are mentality shifts, paradigm shifts, is really getting that sugar and flour are drugs. They are not food. You know how when your parents tell you something when you're about 10 years old and you're like, yeah, whatever. And then when you're 20, you're like, kind of makes sense. And when you're 40 and you've got kids, you're like, oh, now I get it, right? That's what's happened to me over these past 2 years. And that connecting dots video is when it really clicked and made sense to me. That if there was a table with 50 little piles of white powder, one of them could be cocaine, one could be ibuprofen, one could be Excedrin, one could be Tylenol, one could be heroin, one could be nicotine, one could be sugar, and one could be flour. If it started out as a plant and it ended up as a powder, it's by definition a drug, a hepatotoxin, dose-dependent hepatotoxin. That's what sugar and flour are. People say NMF. I've learned to call it NF. NMF, not my food. It's not food. Food, the definition of food is that it promotes growth and sustains life. People ask me, what do you eat on Brightline Eating? And I tell them food. All I eat, all I give this body as far as calories is food. And when you can make that distinction and you can see it that way, that helps you say no thank you to the sugar and flour. Even if it's mixed in with a bunch of food. I can't eat cake on this, but think about why. I can eat eggs. They're in cake. I can eat fruit. That's in a lot of cake. I'm just not eating the sugar and the flour. I don't tell myself I can't have lasagna. I can have ground beef. I can have marinara sauce. I can have cheese. I can have vegetables. The only thing that I'm excluding out of my diet is the flour in the noodles. So I don't tell myself I can't have a million different things. It all comes down to sugar and flour. They are drugs that are not only socially acceptable, but socially promoted in almost everywhere and in almost everything. And when you can make that distinction, that really, really helps. It helps you stay on the path. However, I still want them at times. I still see them. I have a chicken sandwich from Arby's I just found in here from yesterday that my kids did not eat, and I earned a tally mark. That was that tally right there. I earned a tally mark for not eating that piping hot chicken slider from Arby's because it was fried chicken on a warm roll everything about it, all my senses were interested in it. No brain, no tally. So just because my brain gets it, that sugar and flour are drugs, they cause depression and anxiety, the cons outweigh the pros. My brain's also addicted to them, so I use strategies like the tally system. I go into detail on this in my 20-day detox video, also in my how I stop myself from binging video. It's an excellent strategy that is working really, really well. It disrupts the pattern and breaks the cycle of that automatic tendency to default into the substance that I'm addicted to. So, guys, that is it. It takes a conscious effort. It takes support. It takes strategies. It takes the grace of God to stay on this path. And by the grace of God, we'll stay on it. And I'm so glad to be traveling with you all. Speaking of path, here's one right in front of me. That path right there is going to lead me home. And I know a 17-year-old kid that will be glad to see me pull in the driveway. So that's it in a nutshell. I love you guys, and we will talk again soon.